So,
Yeah, I just got back from Gen Con, not yesterday. Wait, yesterday? Yesterday!
Was it yesterday? Yeah, today's Tuesday.
Everything is very
Yes.
disorienting.
That makes sense.
It was an intense few days.
Yeah?
But let's talk about it.
Yeah, so I wasn't there, but tell me about it.
All right. Walking into the Austin airport, made some difficult packing choices. Had to get it down to 3 commanders. And I'm bringing a couple hundred Hecatomb cards, try and spring that on the play group. See if they'll go for that. See if we can maybe sit down and play it in one of the open play spaces, which I assume exist, and see if anyone's curious what's going on there. And chose to bring a bigger bag than I necessarily need for my clothes in case I wind up buying a ton of stuff that I shouldn't buy. But I want to have that option for myself. Okay, so let's address a couple of things that I mentioned there.
Yes.
One is I definitely needed every possible inch of space that I left. I picked a double-sized bag after initially packing in a small bag, thinking, all right, this is efficient. I'm not going to have problems finding space in the overhead bins. And then I realized I need space for the return trip. And I literally doubled the space, and I used it all and barely got everything home. There was a print that I got that looked totally normal sized in the convention that I had to figure out how to pack it at a hypotenuse in my bag because I needed the extra space and it was still slightly bent, but it did not crease.
That's good. That's good.
So yeah, this convention is full of temptation.
I can imagine.
Beautiful temptation.
I can only imagine the temptations that you faced.
And then I also mentioned if I found the open play space, because I was expecting something like what we saw at MagicCon, and where there were just open tables. That was very, very short supply. Almost all the space that I saw was allocated for something, but at any given time, you could find a table that wasn't being used for its declared purpose, and you could squat there for a while and play a game. Actually, a few people were doing that in the Magic On Demand area, and multiple times I was in a group where the judge kicked out people so that we could take the space. So it wasn't as short on space as MagicCon, though.
Yeah.
In general, there was enough.
You didn't have people crouched on the floor playing?
Honestly, people were also doing that, but if they had worked a little harder, they could have found spaces. But I guess just to address the sheer size of Gen Con, I knew this was the biggest convention in general for tabletop games. I mean, this is the birthplace of Magic. This is where it was released. I think it was at its prior location, which was in a different city back in '93. But this is where Magic was introduced and everything, and it has just gotten bigger and bigger. And the center of the convention is 2 connected halls, essentially. One of which closes. The expo hall, the exhibit hall, closes at some point in the day. It has 10 to 6 or something like that each day.
Okay.
The event hall, or the play hall, which it's not named anything here on the map. It's just Hall EDCBA. I read those backwards. That's the way they're printed on the map. But it's the play space or the event space, and it's where there's all these scheduled. You want to play this game, you buy the ticket to play in this space in advance. And that's where all those are. That is open 24/7 during the con.
Okay.
And apparently there's some number of events that actually go on overnight each night. Most of it, I think, it probably clears out. But anytime I was there, it was quite full. But the exhibit floor closes and they have big dividers. So even though if you look on the floor plan, it's all part of the convention center main floor, the exhibit hall just feels and functions a lot different. I'm going by memory here, but it feels like all of MagicCon, which was a huge con, is the size of this set of play halls.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the map, when I walked in and saw the map.
On this map,
on the screen.
Yeah.
This looks enormous compared to MagicCon.
Yeah, I think it's 80,000 attendees for Gen Con.
One of our friends sent me a photo from when they were waiting in line. And...
the will call line?
Yeah, I think so. And yeah, kind of overwhelming. Part of me is a little sad I didn't get to go and experience everything with you guys. Another part of me is I would have been so overstimulated at this event.
I mean, yeah, that is part and parcel of it. That's just the way this goes. But The exhibit hall itself is wild. So it's more focused than some conventions I've been to. Like, I've gone to PAX a few times in the past, not for a few years, but that is a combined just all the games. So it has tabletop and video games and everything. There's very little video game presence at this. There were a couple of things that kind of moved into that territory, but Gen Con is about tabletop games. So that's what the exhibit hall is. There were a couple of anime stores. There were a few, but other than that, it's really all truly focused. No, the other thing was cosplay. There were a few cosplay vendors, maybe 3 or 4, mostly focusing on leather garb stuff. But other than that, you find a mix of individual companies with a display, and most of them are selling their product. They're selling their no games, and they have people doing demos that you walk up to, and they'll have the pieces out, and there's 1 or 2 people allocated anytime to either play demo sample games with people passing by, or to just be doing a continuous demo that everyone can walk up and watch for a little bit and then walk away. A lot of those same games, there will be an event area by the same company over in the event hall where you can sign up in advance. I want to play the full version of this game. You got a 2-hour slot or a 3-hour slot. You know, they have a lot of control over how long the events are, but you pre-purchase those tickets. But just walking through the exhibit hall, you'll see a ton of games demoed. It feels like that's maybe half of what's there. Some are pure stores, like Chessex, the dice company. They have, I think, multiple stores there. There was an Ultra Pro store, just like there was at MagicCon, pretty close to the Magic area, which was I think it was exclusively Magic merch at that store this time. I'm pretty sure Ultra Pro does other merch, right? I don't know if they get licensing
I don't
products
know.
or anything else. Yeah,
maybe they do.
They certainly make deck boxes that can be used with anything. But their presence here seemed Magic focused. You have Warhammer exhibit with tons of Warhammer minis, and then you have the Artist Alley. Basically, they call it Art Show and Authors Avenue here. And there were a number of Magic artists, including Serena Malion, who we saw and I loved last time and got the Stargaze signed. But it was so much easier to get to any given artist, to any Magic artist, because this isn't a Magic event, so people aren't so focused on that. So I was able to just walk up to her. And there were a couple people at her booth, but it hadn't even formed into a line because there weren't enough people to justify that. And up and down the aisles, there were, like I said, maybe a quarter of the artists there were Magic artists, or at least partially Magic artists, but they were a lot more approachable. They didn't seem as harried and overwhelmed themselves. At the same time, the mood in this whole exhibit hall is incredibly hurried and dense, and it has that big city vibe where most of the main walkways are just non-stop people moving, and you can tuck away and find quiet corners. And my personal path, I managed to walk by most of the booths over the course of this entire weekend, but a lot of them it was so overwhelming and there was no way to get up and talk to someone. But the way I chose what to interact with was largely, where do there not happen to be a lot of people right this moment? And I was able to walk up and have, nice conversations with the people working the booths. It seemed like a mix of, some of the booths seemed to have the actual designers there working the booths, and a lot seemed to be more core employees. But then there were also some people who were volunteers who kept accidentally saying their products rather than our products, because clearly they were just hired for this weekend, or I understand you can volunteer for your badge. Like a lot of these companies will say, we need a few people to just work our weekend. And the person I'm thinking of definitely knew some of the games by this company and had played them a lot, but not all of them.
That's a cool. That's neat that they offer that, because I've done that for film festivals.
Oh yeah,
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and I see they have part of this map allocated as Entrepreneurs Avenue. I didn't notice a difference between that area and the rest of it. The companies in this hall tend to be more the mid-size. I mean, you see...
I see eBay has their own booth. I'm not
they
sure
do, they do. But but you don't see, like, Wizards.
That's
Their
true.
booth is not here because there are a bunch of either meeting rooms or ballrooms, which are rented out by the bigger companies.
Oh.
So like there's a Lorcana ballroom, which I saw the signs for and didn't go in. Wizards has a ballroom or an event room somewhere. Oh, here it is on 232. It was
Okay.
in the main building, but I never saw it. I never got to it. I wish I had. Or, well, that's Wizards. They might have a separate one for Magic, but they just have all these separate rooms. And this convention is so big, it's grown into all the surrounding hotels. And so if you look at the big map, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, between 8 and 10 hotels that have ballrooms open. And so one of our group told me about this consignment shop in one of the other ballrooms. So I wandered up there one morning when I didn't have something scheduled and have a little video I'll be playing during this just to show what it looks like. And it was, I don't know, it was the size of a half-price book. That was just full of, maybe that's an overstatement, half of half-price books.
It depends on the location. Every
Yeah,
store is
it
different.
was a true store's worth of just people selling their own games. They have this system where they marked everything for, here's the price of it if you get it on the first day, here's the price if it's here on the next day, here's the price if it's still unsold on the third day. And when I went in there on Saturday morning, so the third day of this convention, it was still full of stuff, and there were just people going through non-stop. And so I have no idea what all was going on in all these other ballrooms and meeting rooms that I just never even got a chance to look at or look up on the program. I passed a Star Trek bridge simulator, which looked pretty cool. I had no idea that was there. I'm looking here and I see True Dungeon on the map. If you're not familiar with that, it's this kind of live-action D&D. I had done it at PAX here like 5 years ago, where you can do the cheap demo version for like 10 or 20 bucks, and they run you through the short version. But there's character creation like D&D.
Cool.
But then you go in there as a person, you're wearing your stat board, and there's different ways that you can, like, spellcasters have to do quick memorization tasks, like memorize what these mean now, tell me what's, all that kind of thing. There's also like riddles. It's a series of rooms, and so some of them are physical, like escape room kind of setups.
Okay.
And there's costumed, NPCs and stuff. And so it's a live action version of that. And then there's randomized gear with rarity that you get to, flesh out your thing.
That's fun.
So that's what True Dungeon is, and that was going on the whole time, and I never even saw where that space was, because again, this thing is so big. It is almost incomprehensibly big. I cannot imagine a single individual can go to this thing. And
I was going to say, it looks like you cannot do everything.
you can't approach doing everything.
Yeah.
You can see everything in the exhibit hall, but you could also do that slowly enough that you could probably enjoy spending your entire 4 days in the exhibit hall just going through deep dives of actually talking to people at each of these booths and not run out of things to do.
How was the food situation? Did you have anything to eat?
In the exhibit hall and the event hall, play hall, I really wish I had a better, clear term for that, there were a couple of very overpriced food vendors, like you expect at this kind of place.
Sure.
And that's mostly what I ate.
Okay.
Toward the latter part of Saturday, I was introduced to the existence of the block party, which if you just walk right outside the exhibition hall, there is a giant row of food trucks, which I could have been going to the whole time. And even once I knew they existed, I considered a few times, I'm hungry right now, do I want to do that? And I just wasn't worth my time because I was trying to do so much stuff.
Sure.
But if you want to have better quality and selection of food, you can absolutely, it's there. It's part of the experience. And you're also just downtown, so I'm sure if you wanted to, you could probably just walk a block and go to all kinds of other restaurants. But then on the other side of the block party is Lucas Oil Stadium. It is a football stadium that they repurpose for this event. It's like an extra play area. It's enormous. Most of these tables are allocated to a particular company or particular game or a particular organization who runs things at them through the weekend. I'm not sure if any are free play, but the distant area, down there at the end, the farthest third of it, is an open gaming library where you can pay one ticket, which is $2, or maybe 2 tickets. But you just get in there, I think, for as long as you want. And there's a huge selection of games you can just go borrow and go sit and play. And when we passed through here late Saturday, there were people doing that.
That's neat.
About half of these tables were occupied. And this is an area where I think you could have easily just gone and sat down and played at most of these, even if they did have an allocation. A lot of them weren't being used right then. This is one of the few places where I did see something video game-esque, and there was I think the game is called Artemis, and it's a bridge simulator, but this one's like, it's not licensed Star Trek, but there were 5 people or 6 people at individual monitors running different stations, comms, weapons, engineering, and there's like a little fighter station, and one person sitting between them serving the role of captain and making the decisions. And apparently you can do like tutorial trainings that you use, more pre-scheduled events. There are like there's a catalog of something like 3,000 events you can sign up for across the convention.
So many.
Yeah, and some of those include the tutorials for this, and then you can, once everyone knows what they're doing, you're supposed to then schedule the time to actually do it as a group. So if we get a big enough group together, that sounds fun too. That's apparently a game you can just buy on Steam and do on your own, but doing it in an actual physical bridge seems really cool too.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of is a high-level summary
Yeah.
of everything going on there. Beyond that, to get into a little bit more of the specific experience of playing Magic at this, you could easily, just like at MagicCon, spend the whole time playing on-demand events. And It's Pastimes is the company who was running the Magic events, which is the same company that ran MagicCon, and I think is running MagicCon Vegas too. So they seem to just be handling all that. And the MagicCon experience that we had was pretty fraught with logistics issues.
Yeah.
Those were largely improved in this situation. I think the on-demand play space was similar, like in square footage, to what they had at MagicCon, because MagicCon, I think, was the size of the event hall here that we were looking at on the map. But only maybe a fifth of or a tenth even of the space we're looking at this map is for Magic. And so I'm just not sure if what my memory is incorrect of. Either these halls are different sizes, because it feels like this is the same size of hall, but like a quarter of it was Pastime scheduled events at MagicCon, but that doesn't line up with my sense that this is the same amount of space. So clearly my gut estimations are off somewhere. In any case, the on-demand events, I figured, were going to have the same kind of problems, because it looked pretty busy at times, but even middle of Saturday, the busiest time of the event, we were able to get into I don't remember if we did a Bloomburrow standard Swiss draft, and we did a two-headed giant Bloomburrow draft. I forget which day it was that we did that in the middle of the Saturday, the busy time, but it was fine. It was 5 to 10 minutes of wait, and then they called us up. So they didn't have that particular problem. There's a different problem that I perceived, in that you can buy event tickets far in advance for this.
Okay.
So we signed up for an Amonkhet flashback draft, and for Gavin's Unknown far in advance, and yet we still have to go up to the registration table, give them the ticket that we got from Will Call, and fill out a form with our name and everything. Why?
Yeah, that seems unnecessary.
I don't know who's dropping the ball here, if they just
up.
can't get Gen Con talking to Pastimes.
Yeah.
That's frustrating that you should have to do that. It makes sense you should have to go up to registration table to do on-demand things.
Sure.
You've got to say, hey, here are the tickets, here is my information.
Yeah, that does seem a bit odd. Like, if they're going to have you go through that process, like, why do they also have the option to pre-purchase online?
And so that made kind of a disaster out of Unknown, which was 100% sold out in advance, as you'd expect, as always happens. So if you want to do Gavin Verhey's Unknown, get your tickets in advance.
Yeah.
But we started that event 15 minutes late because they made 600 people go through this registration line, even though we had all registered in advance.
Yeah. Was it pretty much like the Unknown event that we did at Chicago, or was it different?
It was extremely similar.
Okay.
Of course, the packs we opened were different. This was, I think, one Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, one collector's pack of Baldur's Gate, and then like 3 Modern Horizons 3 packs, and then a Dominaria United, and a couple other things maybe.
Okay.
But similar to that, and then we got 10 new playtest cards, which are of course the highlight and the feature of this thing. A lot of them we had seen before, but there's some new ones. I'll put a picture of everything here. We got Playtest Wish, which lets you, it's a wish card for any of the playtest cards.
Okay.
You can fetch it from your sideboard and play it. There was a cycle, it seems. Maybe it was just 2 cards, because I definitely saw multiples of this one, the Disciple of Nissa. When it attacks, you can pay XXX green to get a token copy of a random Nissa Planeswalker. So if you have 8 mana, you get 2. That happened in one of the games I played.
Wow.
My opponent got 2 Nissas out. There was another one that I think is called Disciple of Vess, and it does a similar thing with Liliana's.
I heard about that one.
Yeah, but it's not an on-attack trigger. Yeah. I also experienced our friend MTG Critical got 4 different Lilianas into play, but that was afterwards. We all played another 4-way game with our decks. The Unknown Event was 1-on-1, just like before. Trash Panda, big fan of that.
I remember Trash Panda.
Oh, so that was there before.
Yes, because I remember that from Chicago.
I don't recall if in Chicago, I think they did the same thing where there was a panel on the first day. No, I don't think so. I think they did the panel where they designed... Gavin had a panel in a panel room where they designed a card for this event as a group. So there were 2 cards in that category here. And he said, I think that the panel was on Friday, and there was only 1 instance of Unknown this time, whereas in Chicago, they did it 2 or 3 times. And so they were able to get the cards printed up from the one they had done at the same event.
Okay.
What I don't recall is whether they did that in Chicago or if they didn't have enough time between the panel and the event. In any case, there were 2. I don't know what the other one was, but mine is an enchantment on one. Rather, it comes down as a battle, and it's a battle of Dragon Brothers, and you choose Bolas or Ugin. And it has a different effect depending on what you did. And then if you defeat the battle, which is, they don't have power 6, but it comes in with 6.
Yeah.
And if you can manage to flip it, it flips into a saga, which the first chapter of the saga is different depending on whether you chose Bolas or Ugin.
Oh, okay. That's kind of cool.
And then when it completes, it flips back over.
Fun.
So it's definitely a board wipe in one incident, which is all I ever saw it used as. But it's a 7-drop board wipe.
Yeah. Destroy all creatures or manifest the top 3 cards of your library.
Right.
Who's going to pick that?
So, yeah. But it flips, and so you could conceivably do it over and over. There's a Leisure Bicycle, which causes things to crew it to explore. That was fun. There's the Karst, so we got a Frank Karsten tribute card. The Miniaturizer feels like a tribute card to someone, but I'm not sure who. The Knight of Landdrops, I was informed, is the Jimmy Wong card, as someone walked up to him who happened to be right in line in front of us to get our next pairings. Someone walks up and said, I got your card, and had him sign it. I don't get the reference myself, but there we go. So yeah,
you just
Jimmy
keep running into Jimmy Wong.
Yes, yeah, we got pictures with him again.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he had a card, one of these playtest cards, which lets you have someone else take your turn for you. I'm not sure what the nature of that is, but we happened to be standing next to him again in a different line when he used that card, and Gavin happened to be standing by him, and Gavin got in, and they all had a group selfie to celebrate the moment where Jimmy Wong pulled in someone else to play his turn using one of the playtest cards.
Wow.
So that was fun nonsense. And
Who got the Call Emrakul for help card?
I don't know. I haven't heard about that one. Maybe that's what that was.
Okay, because I gotta look this up, because you guys were all messaging the chat all weekend, and I lose track of who sent what.
Yeah, I didn't.
But somebody shared this picture.
Okay.
So this card, call up Emrakul to help. Kicker 6. It's a 7-drop with Kicker 6. Exile target non-land permanent. Create a 1/1 colorless Eldrazi Scion creature token. It has sack this creature, add colorless. If call up Emrakul to help was kicked, instead create a token that's a copy of Emrakul to Promised End.
No, I didn't.
And then you probably didn't
yet.
even see it, but in response to that, because I was trying to participate, I made this silly graphic, which I then shared with the chat.
I saw that and loved it and didn't realize what it was.
That's why I made that.
The audience here is seeing it now.
Yes.
They're
That's why I did that.
Yeah.
That was not just me doing that on a Saturday.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Although that is something I would do on a Saturday.
Yeah.
Just make that.
And so just like last time,
Yeah.
you play 3 matches,
Uh-huh.
and technically, when they first announced the rules, it's go, you play the match with someone beside you, and then go to judge, get paired up again. But in practice, everyone just plays against their friends. They go find your friends, or you find anyone.
Sure.
The judges even started midway through. We lined up as instructed, and one of the judges was like, you can play anyone, just go find someone, go play a game. And so Jimmy Wong's standing in front of us, and the guy in front of him turns and says, play a game with me, Jimmy. And so that's how Jimmy Wong got paired up.
All right.
And this was the award you get for playing against 3 people. Win, lose, doesn't matter. You just you sign each other's forms, you go turn it in, and you get the reward. And so this is the Convincing General Changeling, 5/5. It's Wooburg to cast, and it's basically lets you play 2 creature types. It's like dual tribal.
Okay.
So you can read the specific rules text if you like.
Let's see. Changeling. As the game begins, if this creature is your commander, choose 2 creature types. For the rest of the game, treat these 2 types like they're the same among your creatures and creature cards everywhere. You can pay 3 and tap this to choose a creature type. Draw a card for each creature you control of that type.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, so that's legitimately, I think I will make a commander deck with that.
You should. I think you should. What will the creature types
I don't
be?
know.
Do you know yet?
I was thinking, well, I've been working on skeletons, my Jund skeletons. Maybe I try another flavor of skeletons and see what they could be friends with.
Oh, skeleton friends.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you already have skeletons and zombies have so many
Yeah.
overlapping cards, but zombies is. It feels like you want to find obscure tribes that
I think so.
don't have enough synergy to quite get there.
Zombies have enough help.
Yeah. So probably skeletons and something else, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Skeletons and brushwags? Probably not. But we'll see.
But you could. You could.
But overall, though that was pretty cool, I was surprised to find that the experience of participating in Unknown has a lot of diminishing returns for me. When we did it in Chicago, it was so awesome. I loved it.
Yeah.
We got to see the professor. I got to play next to Jimmy Wong.
Yeah.
And have all these interactions. But I'm realizing a couple of things. One is that having a fleeting interaction with a famous person, and this probably extends far beyond Magic, is just not that rewarding of a thing. It's neat to do. I'm glad that I had the experience once, but you don't get to have a substantive conversation with someone like that. And I've now interacted with Gavin twice. He signed my reward card twice. He doesn't have time to exchange more than a sentence or 2 with you. And I don't blame anyone in that situation for that. Jimmy was getting bombarded with requests for selfies and everything constantly. And I'm sure that was his experience all weekend. And he was still there, and he was really friendly.
That's cool.
But there are, thousands of us there who are hugely into this hobby, mobbing these individuals constantly.
Yeah.
And so it's neat, but there's no substance to it. So that benefit isn't that great on repeat. But also the event is so casual, and that does make it playable for everyone. But I am such a intense limited player now that I don't actually get as much enjoyment when we're not trying as hard.
This isn't really on your level.
Yeah, and it's one-on-one
like,
commander.
It's fun, but it's not.
They also changed the rules a little bit.
Okay.
So the rules we played with in Chicago was open all your stuff, and you had extra flexibility with partner and commanders who didn't have partner or something. In this case, they said no color identity rule. Pick a legendary to be your commander, but just do what you want color identity wise. And that makes it a lot more flexible because I had problems in Chicago, and a lot of us encountered that. And this just gets rid of that rule, and that makes, if you're going to do something ridiculously casual anyway,
why not?
This is perfect.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And so we did that. I don't recall if they suspended the legendary rule for your commander back in Chicago. They did not suspend it here, but since we had a Commander Legends pack. Like, you had plenty of legendary creatures. A number of these are legendary. Yeah. So just, pick whichever legendary you'd most like to have access to, but otherwise, make your deck how you want. So I just went Wooburg. I had a lot of decent white cards, so I made I knew I'd be able to cast some cards. It was like a third or quarter or half white deck. And other than that, I just ran all the playtest cards to be able to do nonsense.
As you should.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you're there for, right?
And I had some fun, nonsensical games with that. But But other than that, yeah, the on-demand Magic events were about half of my experience, and that seemed pretty good. I think in the future, both at MagicCon and Gen Con, I am going to be less hesitant to overschedule myself with scheduled events. And I will instead, I think, mostly fill my days with scheduled events. And there is just always time between those to go and wander the exhibit hall and everything. And if I realize that I want some time, I will allocate. This is going to be my 3-hour chunk for that. But I have tried at both of these events to leave at least half my time open and not overschedule. And there are just all these cool things that, yeah, if I had signed up and for them in advance, I would have gotten to do. And instead, I did stuff.
Yeah.
And it was pretty cool, but I think it'd be more fun to just, for me, I think that's probably very personal. And I'm hesitant to say this is what I think I would have been happier doing anyway, but I think it is. I think I would have, I don't know, that's the kind of thing you can only really learn your own personal preferences by trying it out, though. So if someone just desperately wants some kind of baseline, I'd say schedule like 2/3 of your time, 3/4 of your time around events, and you'll still have time to walk around and see other stuff. But yeah, so that's most of what I wanted to mention. There definitely were a few other Magic specific vendors out there. There are a few places that had singles or sealed, but it was a very small minority of the con. There were probably 4 or 5 singles dealers, 1 or 2 others with sealed merch, and Pastimes themselves had a pretty solid booth. They had a number of Gen Con only playmats. I managed to resist the siren call of those this time, but I spent so much money on everything else. I spread it around some more. The Amonkhet flashback draft was pretty fun, but that was a mix where the participants really ranged from casual to people who had clearly done a lot of flashback drafts on Magic Online over the years and knew what they were doing. And so that, I don't know, you can always run into that when you go out and play, but like the on-demand Bloomborough drafts, much more casual. We did 1 Swiss and 1 two-headed giant, like I mentioned, and the Swiss, it was mostly like new players and a couple of intermediate players. I'm counting myself in like the intermediate level because there were pros here at this event. Sam Black was there. I ran into, I can never remember her first name. Last name's Tipple, though she's a pro player who I've watched and had a feature match 1 or 2 pro tours back, and I got a selfie with her. That was exciting. So I know that there were top tier players there, but they didn't seem to be doing the on-demand casual stuff. They were over there for the higher end events. But like the flashback draft was more of a mix, and on the whole, pretty fun games. But my last game, I lost spectacularly to a Approach of the Second Sun cycling deck. That was amazing.
That's wild.
And I didn't even see the Approach of the Second Sun till the last game. The first game, my opponent had 2 Vile Manifestations, which was a card I didn't know. Because I did a lot of paper drafts when Amonkhet was out, but then life happened.
Oh, so this was a like Amonkhet block draft, so it also had Hour. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, and that's the other thing. Apparently they did that wrong. I guess when Hour was out, it was 2 Hour, 1 Amonkhet, but we did it with 1 Hour, 2 Amonkhet. That seemed to bother one person there, but I don't think most of us cared that much. It was still a similar experience. In any case, my opponent had 2 of these, and it was obvious to me, they have the cycling deck, the same way that Ikoria had the Zenith Flare kind of thing. This seems to have been along those lines, where Vile Manifestation plus a bunch of cycling. So I just had no chance in that first game. It was grindy for a while, but eventually I just got overwhelmed by these ever-growing X4s. Second game, I drafted zombies in the end. I guess first picked an Angel of Condemnation.
Fun.
Which is just generically powerful, blinks things or exiles them for exert, or rather O-rings them. And then I got a couple of Lord of the Undeads in packs 2 and 3, and so it was just quintessential zombies with a bomb. So I did pretty well in my first 2 matches, right? I think they were both 2-1, but I won them both. But in that one, I managed to do my zombie on rails thing in game 2. But the last game, I'm on the watch for the Vile Manifestations, thinking that's what I'm watching out for, as my opponent is just cycling. And no, instead, first I get there's a board wipe in it's one of the hours, Hour of Revelation. Yeah, so I play everything to the board. I think I'm going to win this third game with my 2 Lord of the Duds out, Lord of the Undeads, and then everything's gone. Turn after that, approach the second sun, cycle, 2 or 3 turns later, approach the second sun, and I was not mad at all, because that was amazing. That's incredible. That was just someone living the dream, and I got to be there for it.
That's great.
And then, yeah, the Bloomburrow games were... Yeah, we're all learning the Bloomburrow limited experience
Still
right now.
Still new enough that...
Yeah, and so we have all at our pre-releases, we're always playing sealed Two-Headed Giant. They had Two-Headed Giant on demand. I don't know if we really got lucky that... It seemed like those might take longer to fire in general, but since there were 2 pairs of us in our group, we were half of the pod, and there were already 2 pairs signed up, so it fired immediately for us. And draft Two-Headed Giant is a little different, because, at least in this instance... Each team gets 6 packs. You open them one at a time, pick 2 cards at a time, pass. And so that's just a pretty different dynamic than anything I've ever done.
Yeah.
You're building the 2 decks simultaneously.
I've never done that experience.
Yeah, so it was really cool. And we enjoyed that quite a bit. Our friend James, MTG Critical, got past the Squirrels deck.
I'm sure he was thrilled.
Yeah, I mean, he's been playing Chatterfang.
Yeah.
Commander for as long as Chatterfang's been around. This is...
I think as long as I've been playing with him, squirrels have been his thing.
Yeah, so that was great. So he's now acquired most of the squirrel cards from Bloomburrow between some,
Yeah, I heard your team got first.
Yeah. We won. Yeah, but that was just, those games were all awesome. So yeah, I pretty strongly recommend if you are at one of these events. Obviously, we play Two-Headed Giant every pre-release we can. It's pretty fun at MagicCon or Gen Con too, in a convention setting. So yeah, that was probably the highlight of all that. So I think we should go next year, and you should come with us.
I'm tempted. I think maybe I should.
Yeah.
I think maybe I should.
Fingers crossed. Yeah. Life can always happen, other commitments, but
yeah, who knows?
On the whole, very much enjoyed.
I think it's very likely I'll be available. I just need to be more responsible with money.
Yeah, we can...
I don't think it's gonna be a time issue for me. I think it's gonna be more of a
we can knock off nonsense like eating for a few months.
Yeah, if I could just stop eating.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could just put that money towards just ice soup forever, and then Gen Con, here I come.
All right.